I wasn't supposed to be home yet. I'd forgotten my portfolio case. The leather one I bought last spring. The one my mother called too masculine at Thanksgiving dinner, while my sister Natalie giggled into her wine glass. I walked back into my parents' house on Maple Ridge Drive, quiet as snow, planning to grab it from the guest room and head straight to the Christmas Eve gathering at St. Augustine's. Then I heard my name, followed by laughter. Not the warm, fuzzy kind you hear in Hallmark movies. The kind that slithers under your skin and sits there, cold and mean. So I stopped in the hallway, just behind the dining room door that never quite closed right, and I listened. That's when I understood. They weren't planning a Christmas celebration. They were planning a roast. And I was the main course. Growing up as Lauren Mitchell meant learning one fundamental truth. Image was everything. Substance was optional. We lived in a pristine colonial where the marble counters gleamed, but the conversations were always surface level and sharp around the edges. Where holiday cards showed 5 beaming faces, but dinner table talk was mostly silence punctuated by criticism. My mother, Patricia, chaired every charity gala in Cedarwood. My father, Kenneth, wrote checks at every fundraiser that came with a photo opportunity. My siblings, Natalie and Cameron, were golden children, honor roll students, homecoming court, the works. And me? I was the odd one out. The one who preferred darkrooms to country clubs. The one who didn't plaster Instagram with carefully curated brunch photos. The one who moved into a studio apartment at 23, because loneliness felt safer than constant comparison. According to my family, I was strange, unsuccessful, too serious, and worst of all, not worth bragging about. So the pattern developed over years. Whenever we gathered for weddings, holidays, anniversaries, someone would crack a joke about Lauren's latest disaster. Everyone would laugh. I would stare at my plate and pretend I didn't hear. But this Christmas Eve was different. Because this time, I heard everything. At first, my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. Natalie stood center stage in our dining room, holding actual printed pages. Cameron wore a tacky snowman sweater and a brown wig that was clearly meant to mock my hair. My mother adjusted a ring light on a tripod. Dad sat in his recliner, nursing a bourbon. Natalie read aloud in a theatrical voice. Lauren Mitchell closed her photography studio after her grand opening attracted a whopping 4 people. Laughter rippled through the room. Mom interrupted cheerfully. 3 people, honey. Her landlord doesn't count. More laughter. They kept going. Jokes about my broken engagement to Austin. Jokes about my beat-up Civic. Jokes about how I needed their prayers more than anyone. Cameron practiced a line where he pretended to sob. But Mom, I posted 20 photos and got 0 likes. Even my own mother unfollowed me. The room exploded. Then Natalie added, and after the skit, we do the blessing reading. But first, the surprise. Dad grinned. We present Lauren's gift. Everyone loves a good finale. My hands went numb. A finale. I wasn't just the punchline. I was the entire show. I backed away silently. I didn't grab my portfolio case. I walked out into the December cold with my heart pounding. Not from hurt. From absolute clarity. For 5 years, I'd been invisible to them. They never bothered asking what I actually did for work. They saw my camera equipment and assumed photography was my entire life. My passion, my job, my failure. Photography was my side project. My therapy. My art. My real career? I owned 4 commercial properties in downtown Cedarwood. And one of those properties? The 3-story brick building on Commerce Street where my father's business operated, Mitchell's Fine Furniture, the family showroom that had been featured in Home and Design magazine. They never asked who owned the building. They just sent rent checks to the LLC listed on the lease agreement every month. ML Properties. Mitchell Lauren Properties. My initials. My company. My building. And guess who'd been late on rent for 4 consecutive months? Them. Guess who'd ignored every courtesy reminder sent via email? Also them. Guess who had full legal authority over that lease? Me. I sat in my Civic in the church parking lot, engine running, heat blasting, and opened my laptop. My hands had stopped shaking. My mind was perfectly, eerily calm. I drafted 4 documents. Notice of overdue payment, $18,000 outstanding. Notice of lease non-renewal, effective February 28. Rent increased to current market rate, if they chose to renegotiate. Property management transition announcement. Then I drove to FedEx office on Highway 9, open until midnight on Christmas Eve for last-minute shoppers, and printed everything on premium cardstock. I slid the documents into a red velvet gift box with gold ribbon, tucked in a small card that read, Merry Christmas, or L.M. Professional. Clean. Devastating. I didn't go to St. Augustine's that night. Instead, I hired a courier service, one of those companies that deliver singing telegrams and oversized checks. I paid extra for immediate delivery. At 8:15 p.m., according to the timestamp he'd send me later, the courier walked into the church fellowship hall during the dessert hour. The skit had just ended. My family was still glowing, basking in applause and laughter. People were congratulating them on their hilarious performance. Mom was holding court near the coffee station. Natalie was taking selfies with the props. The courier, dressed in a Santa hat and professional uniform, approached my mother directly and said, Special delivery for the Mitchell family. He handed her the red velvet box with the gold ribbon. Everyone gathered around, assuming it was a donation for the church or some extravagant gift from a business partner. Mom opened it in front of 40 witnesses. Her smile froze. She pulled out the first document, Notice of Lease Non-Renewal, effective February 28. Dad stepped closer, frowning. Natalie leaned in, confused. Cameron whispered, What's that? Mom flipped to the second page. Outstanding balance, $18,000. Then the third page. New rent calculation if renegotiation was desired, $7,500 per month, up from $4,200. Then the signature line, ML Properties, LLC, owner and landlord, Lauren Mitchell. The fellowship hall went silent. Someone's coffee cup clattered onto a saucer. Everyone stared as my mother's face drained of color. Natalie whispered, This can't be real. Dad's voice cracked. She owns the building. Mom spoke barely above a whisper, as if saying it louder would make it more real. Lauren did this. At 10:43 p.m., my phone lit up. Mom's name glowed on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. I was sitting cross-legged on my couch, wearing flannel pajamas, drinking peppermint tea, and watching It's a Wonderful Life on mute. Her voice was ice. Where are you? I kept my tone even. Home. Mom's words came fast and sharp. What did you do? We received some kind of. I cut her off gently. Did you enjoy my gift? Silence. Heavy. Loaded. Then, fury. You humiliated us in front of the entire congregation. I took a slow sip of tea. No. I gave you exactly what you planned for me. She didn't respond. I continued, voice calm. You wanted a show, Mom. You wanted an audience. You got one. Another pause. I could hear Dad's voice in the background, muffled, frantic. There will be consequences for this, she hissed. My voice didn't waver. There already are. You're 4 months behind. And I'm not renewing the lease. You have 60 days to vacate or negotiate new terms. She tried to regain control. You're doing this out of spite. I shook my head even though she couldn't see me. No. I'm doing this because I'm done being your punchline. We're your family, Lauren. The word hung there, family, like it was supposed to mean something sacred. Like it was a shield against accountability. I exhaled slowly. Family doesn't rehearse skits to mock each other, Mom. It was just jokes. You've always been too sensitive. I wasn't sensitive, I interrupted. I was silent. There's a difference. Her voice shifted, less anger, more desperation. Your father's business will suffer. Our employees. Then maybe Dad should have paid rent on time. We were going through a rough quarter. You hosted a catered Thanksgiving for 30 people last month. Silence again. So this is revenge, she finally said. I set my mug down. No. This is business. You taught me that appearances matter, remember? Well, legally, I'm your landlord. And landlords don't subsidize tenants who mock them at church. Lauren. I'm not discussing this further tonight. My attorney will contact you after Christmas. Merry Christmas, Mom. I hung up. My phone exploded after that. Texts, voicemails, missed calls. From Natalie, how could you? We are family. This is insane. From Dad, we need to talk. Please. Not like this. From Cameron, Mom's having a breakdown. Call her back. Not one apology. Not a single acknowledgement of what they'd done. Just outrage that I'd finally responded. Christmas morning, I woke up at 7 a.m. to 17 new messages. I made coffee. I opened my one present to myself, a new lens I'd been eyeing for months. Then I sent a group text to my family. Merry Christmas. I hope your day is as memorable as you planned mine to be. Natalie responded immediately. You ruined everything. I smiled at my phone, set it face down on the counter, and replied, No. I just stopped pretending. Then I blocked all of them. Not out of anger. Out of peace. The week between Christmas and New Year's was quiet. Too quiet. I half expected them to show up at my apartment. To bang on the door. To force some kind of confrontation. But nothing came. Just silence. On December 28th, I received a formal email from a law firm I didn't recognize, Caldwell & Associates. Subject line, Re, Property Dispute, Mitchell's Fine Furniture. I opened it with my morning coffee. The email was polite, professional, and utterly predictable. They were representing my father's business. They claimed my non-renewal was retaliatory and in bad faith. They threatened legal action if I didn't rescind the notice. I forwarded the email to my attorney, Nina Valdez, with a single line, They hired someone. Thoughts? Nina called me 30 minutes later. Lauren, they have no case. You've documented every late payment. You sent courtesy reminders. Your non-renewal is within legal bounds. This is posturing. So what do I do? Nothing. Let me handle it. Enjoy your week. I exhaled. Thanks, Nina. Oh, and Lauren? For what it's worth, good for you. By January 2nd, word had spread through Cedarwood like wildfire. Small towns thrive on gossip, and this was premium fuel. The story had morphed in a dozen directions. Lauren Mitchell kicked her family out on Christmas. The Mitchells have been scamming their own daughter for years. Patricia Mitchell's daughter is suing the whole family. None of it was fully accurate, but I didn't care enough to correct anyone. I stopped going to my usual coffee shop, too many stairs. I avoided the grocery store on Main Street. I worked from home and kept my head down. But on January 5th, something unexpected happened. I received an email from a woman named Claudia Reyes. Subject line, You don't know me, but thank you. Curious, I opened it. Dear Lauren, you don't know me, but I work at Mitchell's Fine Furniture. I've been there for 8 years. I'm a single mom with 2 kids, and this job is everything to me. I wanted you to know that what you did wasn't cruel. It was necessary. Your father hasn't paid us overtime in 6 months. He keeps saying business is slow, but we all see the new cars, the vacations, the country club memberships. He takes advantage because he knows we need the work. When the lease news broke, some of us were scared. But then we realized, maybe this is the push we needed. Maybe new ownership means fair treatment. I don't know your full story, but I know enough. You stood up for yourself. That takes guts. Thank you. Claudia. I read the email 3 times. Then I cried. Not from sadness. From relief. I wasn't a villain. I wasn't heartless. I was just done being walked on. I replied to Claudia that evening. Claudia. Thank you for reaching out. I can't promise what happens next with the building, but I want you to know, I see you. And I hear you. If new management takes over, I'll make sure they know the staff deserve better. Take care. Lauren. I hit send and closed my laptop. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I'd done something right. On January 8th, my parents made their first real move. Dad called me. Not Mom. Him. His voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. Lauren. Can we meet? Just you and me. Coffee. Neutral ground. I hesitated. Please, he added. I need to talk to you. No lawyers. No drama. Just talk. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Redwood Cafe. Tomorrow at 10. I'll be there. I arrived at Redwood Cafe at 9:55 a.m. Dad was already there, sitting in the corner booth, hands wrapped around a mug of black coffee. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. The kind of tired that comes from stress, not just lack of sleep. I slid into the seat across from him. Ordered a cappuccino. Said nothing. He cleared his throat. Thank you for coming. I nodded. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, he spoke. I didn't know. I frowned. Didn't know what? About the skit. Your mother and Natalie planned it. Cameron went along because, well, you know how he is. But I didn't know it would be so cruel. I leaned back. You were sitting right there, Dad. You laughed. He winced. I know. I did. And I'm sorry for that. But I didn't help plan it. I didn't write the jokes. Does that make it better? He looked down at his coffee. No, it doesn't. We sat in uncomfortable silence for another minute. Then he said, I didn't know you owned the building either. You never asked. That's fair. He nodded slowly. I should have. I should have asked a lot of things. What you do. How you're doing. If you were okay. But you didn't. No, I didn't. He met my eyes. And that's on me. I studied his face. He looked genuine. Regretful, even. But I wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. Why are you here, Dad? He exhaled. Because I want to fix this. Not the business. I mean, yes, that too, but this. Us. The family. There's nothing to fix. You all made your choice. Lauren. You chose to make me the joke. 4 years. And when I finally stood up for myself, suddenly I'm the villain. His jaw tightened. Your mother is devastated. Good. The word came out sharper than I intended. Dad flinched. I softened slightly. I'm not trying to be cruel. But she humiliated me in front of everyone we know. She planned it. She directed it. And when I responded with basic business consequences, not revenge, just business, she acted like I committed some unforgivable sin. Dad nodded slowly. You're right. I blinked. What? You're right. What she did was wrong. What we did was wrong. I didn't expect that. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. He continued, I'm not asking you to forgive us. Not yet. But I'm asking, can we negotiate? The lease. The building. We'll pay what we owe. We'll agree to new terms. Just, don't shut us out completely. I stirred my cappuccino, watching the foam swirl. Why should I? Because despite everything, you're still my daughter. And I don't want to lose you over this. His voice cracked on the last word. I looked up. His eyes were red. I've already lost you in a lot of ways, haven't I? He said quietly. You moved out early. You stopped coming around. You kept your life private because we made you feel like you had to. I didn't respond. I don't blame you, he added. But I want a chance to do better. I left the cafe without making any promises. But I didn't say no either. That night, I called Nina. Set up a meeting. My father, his attorney, you, and me. Let's negotiate terms. You sure? Nina asked. No, but I'm willing to try. Okay, I'll set it up. I hung up and stared at the ceiling. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. Maybe it was about moving forward without carrying the weight. The meeting happened on January 15th at Nina's office, a sleek space downtown with glass walls and minimalist furniture. Present, me, Nina, my father, and his attorney, a man named Lawrence Webb who looked like he stepped out of a corporate drama. Mom wasn't there. Natalie and Cameron weren't either. Just Dad and me. Nina started. Let's keep this straightforward. Ms. Mitchell is willing to discuss lease terms under the following conditions: full payment of outstanding rent, agreement to a revised lease at market rate, and a formal acknowledgement of past violations. Lawrence adjusted his glasses. My client is prepared to pay the overdue amount in full by January 31st. However, we'd like to negotiate the rate increase. Current market rate is excessive given. Nina cut him off. Current market rate reflects comparable properties in downtown Cedarwood. If Mr. Mitchell feels that's excessive, he's welcome to seek alternative locations. Lawrence frowned. Dad spoke up. Lauren, please. I know we're negotiating, but can we just talk? Off the record. Nina glanced at me. I nodded. 5 minutes, Nina said. We'll step out. She and Lawrence left the conference room. Dad leaned forward. I meant what I said at the cafe. I want to fix this. Paying rent on time is a good start. I'm serious. Not just about the building. About us. I crossed my arms. What does that even look like, Dad? I don't know yet. But I want to try. Your mother, she's stubborn. She thinks you overreacted. But I don't. I think we pushed you too far. You think? He nodded. I know. And I'm sorry. I looked at him, really looked at him. The grey in his hair. The lines around his eyes. He wasn't the untouchable figure I grew up fearing. He was just tired. If I agree to renew the lease, I said slowly, I need something from you. Anything. An apology. A real one. Not just to me. To everyone who was there that night. His face paled. You want me to apologize publicly? Yes. Lauren, that's what it costs, I said firmly. You humiliated me in front of the church. If you want my forgiveness, you acknowledge what happened. Publicly. He sat back, processing. Think about it, I said. You have until the end of this meeting to decide. Nina and Lawrence returned. Dad looked at his attorney, then at me. I'll do it. Lawrence looked confused. Do what? I'll apologize. Publicly. At church. Lawrence started to protest, but Dad held up a hand. It's not up for debate. Nina raised an eyebrow at me. I nodded slightly. Then we have terms, Nina said. Outstanding balance paid by January 31st, lease renewed at $6,800 per month, a compromise. And a public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Lawrence sighed but didn't argue. Dad extended his hand across the table. Deal. I shook it. Not because I trusted him completely, but because it was a start. As I left Nina's office, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not that everything would magically be perfect, but that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. On January 19th, I received a text from Dad. Apology scheduled for this Sunday. I hope you'll be there. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied, I'll be there. Sunday, January 22nd. I walked into St. Augustine's for the first time since Christmas Eve. The fellowship hall felt different. Smaller somehow. Less intimidating. I spotted Dad near the front, talking quietly with Pastor Franklin. Mom sat in the third row, stone-faced. Natalie and Cameron sat beside her, looking uncomfortable. I took a seat in the back. Several people glanced at me, curious, surprised, maybe even sympathetic. But no one approached. That was fine. I wasn't here for them. After the service, Pastor Franklin invited everyone to stay for announcements. Then he said, Kenneth Mitchell has asked to share something with the congregation. Dad stood. Walked to the front. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped the podium. The room went silent. I want to apologize, he began, voice steady but quiet. On Christmas Eve, my family performed a skit that was meant to be funny. But it wasn't. It was cruel. It targeted my daughter, Lauren, and it hurt her deeply. I felt every eye in the room shift toward me. Dad continued. I didn't write the skit, but I laughed. I participated. And that was wrong. Lauren deserved better from me. From all of us. Mom stiffened in her seat. Natalie stared at the floor. I don't expect immediate forgiveness, Dad said. But I wanted to publicly acknowledge what happened and say, I'm sorry, Lauren. Truly. He looked directly at me. I didn't smile. Didn't nod. Just met his gaze. He sat down. Pastor Franklin thanked him, and the room slowly resumed its usual chatter. After the service, I stood outside in the cold, debating whether to leave. Then Dad approached. Thank you, he said quietly, for being here. I said I would be. He nodded. I know it doesn't fix everything, but it's a start. It is, I agreed. We stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then Mom appeared, arms crossed, face tight. Are you satisfied now? I looked at her evenly. Are you? She blinked, caught off guard. You wanted me to be something I'm not, I said. For years. And when I finally stopped trying, you punished me for it. So no, Mom. I'm not satisfied. But I'm also not angry anymore. I'm just done. Her mouth opened, then closed. Natalie stepped forward hesitantly. Lauren. I didn't realize how much it hurt. I'm sorry. I stuttered her. She looked sincere, maybe for the first time in years. Thank you, I said simply. Cameron said nothing. Just gave me a small, awkward wave. I nodded back. I didn't stay for coffee. Didn't linger. I walked to my car, climbed in, and sat for a moment in the quiet. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Thank you for giving me a chance. I typed back. Thank you for taking it. Then I drove home. 3 months later, things weren't perfect. But they were better. Dad paid rent on time. Every month. Without reminders. Mom and I spoke occasionally. Brief, polite conversations. Not warm, but not hostile. Natalie sent me a birthday card in March. Cameron invited me to his college graduation in May. I went. Not because I'd forgotten what happened, but because I'd finally let go of the weight. And when people asked me how I survived that Christmas, I smiled and said, I stopped waiting for an apology I didn't need. I gave myself the gift they never could, my own respect. Because that Christmas, for the first time in my life, I chose me. And that was the greatest gift of all.